But now we're going to move on to something slightly lighter, but I think actually deeply cynical, and that is the Food and Drug Administration. Under this administration, um, they're moving forward with plans to censor your milk. So I don't know how you feel about this, if you're even in on the craze, but among the Gen Zs, especially the white girls and the gays, oat milk is the new almond milk. Almond milk is kind of old news, and now it's everything. Oh, can I get an oat milk iced latte? Right? It's like it's the big, because dairy is so yesterday. Dairy is bad for you. Dairy is old news. Just like how the trends are, right? It's dairy is out, fake dairy is in. Well, the FDA is considering making it illegal to call oat milk or almond milk milk. And so here's some reporting from Reason. The Food and Drug Administration is likely to move ahead with wrong-headed and unconstitutional plans to prohibit producers of non-dairy milks, including almond milk and soy milk, and oat milk, I would add, from using the term milk to describe their milks, because powerful dairy interests are pushing the FDA to limit their competition. And so, of course, they've got a lawyer discussing how unconstitutional this is, but there are large and powerful groups asking for this ban, and the FDA is reportedly planning on imposing it anyway. So I guess my first question for you, Jack, is were you aware of the pressing need to get the government here solving this urgent problem?
Well, first of all, I don't like milk, which my bones disagree with that decision on my part. But no, I wasn't aware of it, and this just sounds like classic cronyism, of which the FDA has been. That's a lot of what they do, right?
Yeah, it is. And I guess I find it so one thing is I really hate nanny state
Sure.
issues where the government's coming in and being paternalistic and protecting you from yourself because you're a stupid little pleb is essentially the idea. The Michael Bloomberg school of political thought. Oh, we have to ban big soda sizes or people will drink themselves to an early grave. Well, this is America. And if I want to die of heart disease and morbid obesity, I will. No, I'm kidding a little bit. But the idea here is offensive to me on behalf of Americans because Americans, they're not the most informed when it comes to like asking them to name the three branches of government. But I think they know that almond milk and oat milk don't come out of a cow. What these big dairy companies are arguing is that it's essentially fraud and misleading consumers to label these products milk. As if people are so stupid that they think these are cow dairy products when they're not. Which I am sure you could find somebody with that who thinks that coconut milk is when they feed the cow coconuts and then milk it out with coconut flavored. But that person is probably 5 years old and also waiting for the tooth fairy to drop off their money for their tooth. It's like, this is insulting that they think we need this. And it's just such bizarre priorities because the FDA literally created a baby formula shortage that's a national crisis still through its incompetence, and yet this is what they're working on right
Can
now.
you imagine James Madison, other founders working on our governing charter, which would later be called the Constitution of the United States, and they're worried about, delegation of powers and, free speech and all these other things. One of them goes, "Hey, what if people are being sold milk that's not really milk? And how can the federal government like?" They would have thought that was the craziest thing in the world, that the federal government that would be its role, right? But here we are in 2022. We're discussing this. This is nothing new. The FDA trying to regulate and not trying, regulating these things is nothing new. It's another big government boondoggle. It's cronyism. It's the big corporations that are involved in the milk industry not wanting these other industries that are, as you note, you'd have to be really, really stupid to think that almond milk comes from a cow or these other things. Was it oat milk? um, it's bizarre. It's insulting. It's un-American, certainly unconstitutional, I would argue, in the large scheme of things. This hasn't been pressed in the Supreme Court, obviously, at the Supreme Court, obviously, but it's just stupid. This is absolutely
It's
stupid,
also,
and it hurts
though,
businesses that are trying to sell these products and rightfully called them milk, even though they don't come from cows.
yeah, it's also interesting to me because this is an example of it's not even necessarily a partisan thing,
Right.
because one of the leading senators who's calling for this is Mike Crapo from Indiana, a Republican. I'm sorry, from Idaho,
Right.
a Republican from Idaho, which is a big dairy state, which a lot of dairy companies
I
are
wonder
based
who his
in.
donors are.
He has
Hey.
Yes, he has introduced the defending against imitations and replacements of yogurt, milk, and cheese to promote regular intake of dairy every day act, which would force the FDA to do this and crack down on plant-based alternatives that are labeled as milk. And it's like, dude, this is so transparent donor service. And maybe it's not even donors, but it's just like constituencies in his home states, like dairy farmers or voters. It might not even be about money, but it's very obviously political clientelism, because there's no actual need for this. And also, it's like, how can you on one hand say that you're a small government, fiscal conservative Republican, and yet also you think it's the federal government's job to promote people consuming dairy every day? Like, maybe, here's a crazy thought, people could decide that for themselves. And then, Jack, on the other side of this, you've got Cory Booker, a progressive, very progressive Democrat from New Jersey. He joined with two of the lawmakers we actually like, Senator Mike Lee and Congresswoman Nancy Mace, in writing a letter opposing this and saying this is messed up priorities. So people can see this even when they take their partisan blinders off. It's not even that partisan an issue. It's mostly just a corruption swamp thing, I think.
I would totally agree. It's not a left-right thing. It's where your bread's buttered thing. So if you're an Idaho representative and there's a big dairy industry there, or read between the lines, as you just mentioned. I don't know how big the dairy industry is in New Jersey, where Cory Booker's a representative, but he is a progressive, and some old school progressives care about constitutional issues, i.e., the old ACLU. And we obviously know that Mike Lee and Nancy Mace are libertarian leaning, so they're going to be constitutional conservatives on something like this. So it doesn't always play out left and right. Everybody's threats to democracy, threats to the Constitution, blah, blah, blah. This is the kind of everyday threats to the Constitution that happen that right or left don't really care about unless they can own the libs or own the right. That's their main goal.
Yeah, it's hard to get too up in arms over oat milk, although there are probably some white girls and gays out there who will. These lawmakers don't know the beast they're awakening, but it's more like the principle. Sure. It's like these companies have a First Amendment right to label their products as milk, and there is an exception to commercial speech for like fraud, but you can't seriously argue this is fraud. Come on, give me a break. And this to me is just like, it's just another more proof that if you think the government is like hard at work with your tax dollars trying to solve your problems, you are mistaken. Most of what they're doing is about their own interests or the special interests serving them as their clients. And so this is, to me, is just another example of that.
I completely agree. This is the people who want this enforced are literally crying over spilled milk. I had to say it, Brad. What else could I do? Sorry.
Puns.